Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. We'll call the Board of Commissioners August 6th meeting to order. Please join me for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move the agenda.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Okay, we'll move on to the Small Cities Loan Extension Request. Patty, come on up.
Hello,
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, Patty.
Morning.
and this
Morning.
is Amber Duncanson. She's our new city clerk.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome.
So, well, Bruce is here, and he received a small cities loan from us in 2014. He's made payments, no issues. He's always been current, and he's asking for a 5-year extension. We've come twice before you for other extensions, so he's paid over $20,000 on his loan, and it's for his attorney's office in his home.
Sure. Okay.
On behalf of Commissioner Brunder, I'll move that.
Yeah. Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's done. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. That works
pretty easy, Dad.
Yeah, that wasn't so bad.
Thank you. We're glad you're there. I just moved it for you.
Yeah. She mentioned your name.
I did.
Okay, we'll move on to the Emergency Operations Plan approval. Mike, come on up.
Morning, Mike.
Morning, Mike.
Morning.
Every year, I come in front of you about this time where we update our EOP, or Emergency Operations Plan. It's mandatory as a county that we have an EOP to get our EMPG funding. And there's a set of guidelines called the MNWAC that we have to stay on top of. It's kind of an agenda, and we have to meet all the pieces. Brenda dedicates quite a bit of her time to keeping this updated every year. She spends a lot of time on this and does a really nice job. So it's all been updated. It meets the criteria of MNWAC. We just need the board to approve the plan. It's quite thick and quite lengthy. I'm not gonna, and it's all capable. I think Bob has a flashcard of it if anybody wants a copy of the flashcard to review it. It's not a great working document because it has a lot of state and federal guidelines to make it. We take pieces out of it that are working, but some of it is just also just language that is meant to meet the criteria.
Sure. So, any questions for Mike?
The only question I have is, as I understand, the only changes really were updating contact information primarily.
Most of it was the contact information, a little bit on the COOP plan. She had some, Jesse did some updates on the COOP plan, and then invariably the state comes down with some a tweak or that here and there. The big update was 3 years ago or 4 years ago now, when the MNWAC was, they redid the whole MNWAC, and then that caused us to do a big upgrade to the plan. These are just general tweaks every year.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Have a motion to approve?
I'm on.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's approved. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, we will move on to the Judicial Ditch 17 for petition for improvement preliminary hearing. Greg, Ryan, you coming up too, or? Okay. Again, welcome everyone. Today we're here to consider the petition for improvement and petition for lateral on Judicial Ditch 17. Craig Austinson, Ditch Manager, will cover the proof of mailings and notices.
Okay. The hearing notice was mailed on July 12th, 2019 to all benefited landowners. The one thing here, just before we started, Bruce Sellers requested that he's just going to reserve comment until later if need be, so we don't need to introduce him, so we'll skip down to the engineer's report.
Okay, very good. So, okay, Mr. Brandel, come present your preliminary report then.
John Judd with ISG. We had a landowner meeting on July 24th and went over the preliminary engineer's report. Since then, we have received a couple comments, but I'll go over the report. So we're at the preliminary hearing stage. There was more than 26% petitioners on the project. And this preliminary hearing is the project cost effective, feasible, is the outlet adequate? And then moving on to, if the project moves on to appoint viewers and do a final hearing. So it's a middle step in the process. Watershed is just under 600 acres. Originally, when we looked at this a few years ago, we had a higher watershed area, but there's been lands that have been drained or tiled out to the north. The system was originally constructed in 1917, so it's over 100 years old. There was just under 50,000 feet of tile in this watershed, which is more public tile per acre than most of your other watersheds in the county. 63, the outlet was replaced, and then again in 2017, the outlet was replaced again. The 2017 repair had some funds from the SWCD. We put in a structure to help reduce erosion, really because it had a history of having issues near the outlet. So here's a map of the watershed. The red line represents the watershed boundary. The black lines represent the public tile. Most of the county systems in southern Minnesota and Blue Earth County have a public tile that go through or a connection to each property. This system has essentially private tile. It's been somewhat system tile and private tile that were converted to public tile. The proposed system is to abandon most of the small laterals and branches on the system and just replace it with mainline tile that connect up to each property. So the cost of the improvement is actually less than it would cost to replace the entire public system. We do a feasibility study with these projects before a petition moves forward. Part of the reason this project was moving forward is that there's portions of the system that are failing, have failed, or are near failure. It was televised in 2017. We show that the pipe is deteriorating. Obviously, it's over 100 years old. The capacity is at 0.3 inches per day. We looked at two options, one going to a ½ inch drainage coefficient, another going to a 0.4 drainage coefficient, a little less than what the standard would be, just from a cost standpoint. And the petition was to go with the less costly alternative in this case. Here's some of the televising information. All of the lines in color were televised back in 2017, showing some of the conditions of the tile. It's lower left. The tile is collapsing. We had a large rock in the bottom where we couldn't get through. Concrete filled up in an area. Scaling of the pipe. And my understanding this spring that there were some other significant issues that have popped up on this system. So it is failing or near failure. So we broke down the existing capacity of the entire system. But the proposed improvement, we broke it down into two options, one with storage, one without storage. You can see, if you look at the green lines, we're abandoning a lot of the private lines that were in place. We're also doing a little bit of a reroute. The main line used to come up on the western side of the system, if you follow the arrow, and then come over to the east and back to the north. To save on some costs and a larger pipe size through this section, proposing to route branch 1, which got very close to connecting already on the east side of the system, essentially having a main on the west and a main on the east. So the proposed system would be a 24-inch main and then a 24-inch tile on branch 1, The main line on the west would be an 18 all the way up to a 15. There are 2 proposed crossings of County Road 38. There has been some discussion with Minnesota Valley Lands that they would like to abandon the tile through their property. We just received that information last week. If we move on to the final, we could look at an option of maybe running that tile to the east. And if that's the case, maybe we could potentially look at 1 crossing instead of 2 for the highway, but that's something we can look into just based on comments we've just recently received. So the first option has a pond near the outlet. The second option is the same tile alignment, just removing the pond near the outlet. When we looked at the hydraulic capacity, and I'm just going to jump around a little bit. We looked at the outlet capacity, and with storage, we could reduce the peak flows coming out of the system. It's not a very large system. A small pond could reduce flows coming out of the system. If you just look at, if you don't put in storage, and going to a 0.4 and doing some rerouting, with the timing, the small events increase peak flow, but the large events that cause flooding downstream, the 25, 50, and 100-year event closely match the existing capacity. So you could make an argument that from a cost perspective, storage may not be needed. We do have landowner support to do storage in the system. I believe there was a meeting with the SWCD to look at some options. And that's something I think we continue to pursue. If you would approve this today, my recommendation would be to approve both options to allow us to have that flexibility that if we can get some outside funding, let's put in storage. That's been a standard here in Blue Earth County to do. And then see if the cost benefit ratio works out that the system can pay for it or not. It's a small system, and for the system, it's an expensive project. So anything we can do to save costs, I think, is important as part of the project. As with all of the improvements that we do, we allow HDPE or plastic pipe or RCP or concrete pipe. 95% of those projects go in as HDPE. We talked with landowners about intakes. We put in intakes in road ditches to capture surface water. We put them in low spots where they had intakes before. But we also have intakes on the system for televising. We require the system to be fully televised before the Drainage Authority takes it over. So there's multi-purposes to have intakes on the system. We show this video to landowners, and I can kind of go through it quick, just to show that if this project is approved, there will be construction on your property. This is Blue Earth JD9 about a year ago, 42-inch tile going in, and that included in the project is temporary easements for damages, for soil damages, compaction for construction traffic, compaction where the trench would be. We just don't want landowners to be surprised that this is a construction project through your property. So, like I said, we factored in the damages in our estimates. For the storage pond, we also included a permanent damage, about an acre, a little less than an acre and a half at $6,500 an acre. Here's the preliminary drawing of the proposed storage area. Profile of the system. So when we look at the cost difference between the options, with storage, you've got a potential cost of $1.2 million. If we had to repair the entire public system, it's $1.5 million. We're not recommending that. Landowners are on board with that. We know that portions of the main and the larger branches are failing or have failed. and we will not be connecting those up either. In any case, from a cost-benefit ratio, it's less expensive to do this repair than it would be to improve the system. So,
Other way around.
Other way around.
oh yeah. Yep. Less expensive to improve the system. So, if we do not do the storage pond, we're just over $1 million for the preliminary cost on the project. The existing system, a majority of it would be abandoned. Some of the smaller branches that are still functioning may be hooked up, but we know it's in very poor shape and we're going to abandon most of the system. We did talk with landowners about multi-purpose drainage management and included that in our report. We looked at it at many different types of practices that could be installed on the watershed, within the watershed, including wetland areas, bioreactors. Most of this area is relatively flat. They could do controlled drainage. At this point, we're proposing to do storage if we can make it cost effective in the watershed, and alternative intakes with either rock or Hickenbottom intakes in road ditches and low areas. We did receive a letter from the DNR. I believe we have to read that into the record.
Yep.
Well, it came after the
okay.
board, it didn't come until like Friday, so after the board packet.
I'll give, if it's okay, I'll give a high-level review of that.
Okay.
If that's all right. There was a comment that the system would be gaining more than a 0.4 inch drainage coefficient because the existing tile would be left in place. As I previously stated, that tile is not functioning. Landowners have said, don't hook it up, we're going to block it. So we will have a 0.4 inch drainage coefficient at the outlet. There's a comment about some drone footage that we show in our report. We flew the system this spring before all the tiles were functioning. We agree that it does show when tiles are not at full capacity. We use that information essentially for modeling to show where water would pond. So the DNR just had a comment about that. And they commented about wetlands in the watershed. As we move on to the final, we can review those wetland areas with landowners again. So at this point, it's our opinion that the project is cost-effective, practical, and feasible. We recommend approving the preliminary engineering report, appointing viewers, and moving forward with the final engineer's report. But I'd ask that you approve it with both options so we can include looking at storage, but if we don't have from a cost-effective standpoint, we still have the flexibility to do that at the final hearing. So, one way or the other.
Any questions for Chuck?
Mr. Chair, I just have one question. So from what I understand, Chuck, you're going to move or remove some of the tile lines and just go to one more main line. So is there going to be some extra cost for the landowners then to get that individual tiling systems into that system, or have you talked about that?
We've included in our cost estimate a private tile connection every 200 feet. We don't have private tile maps from every landowner.
Okay.
But we're assuming that we will hook up private tiles on both sides of the main.
Okay, perfect.
And we physically won't remove the old tile. We'll block it periodically, maybe every 1,000 feet, and leave it in place so we don't have the expense of taking it to a landfill.
Sure. Thank you.
How many landowners are involved with this?
Good question. I did not count, but
There's a list.
15 to 20. It's not a very big
Not
system.
very big.
So it's 590 acres. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we're talking between $1,700 and $2,500 per acre
It's a very expensive project per acre.
for acreage that is valued around $6,500 an acre to start with. Is it going to improve the value of the land?
Well, the existing system is failing, so
So
Okay,
the land isn't worth that much because of the failure, is that what you're telling me?
If it completely fails, the land will not be worth very much at all.
Right.
And by increasing, we're essentially doubling the capacity of the system, you will increase the value of the property. So that's part of the viewer's job, is to determine what that value is. But when you look at the cost benefit, it's $1.5 million to repair it the way it is now.
Right.
Which you practically wouldn't do, but this is more cost effective than repairing it. And then you do get the added benefit of some additional capacity. So
Okay.
for this system, it's not,
It's just,
when you do it,
it's
I
an
mean, it's
unbelievable cost for that small amount of land, and I you know, people don't think it costs farmers money to have land like this. You know,
part of the,
they don't understand the cost value in it. So, yeah, it's amazing.
part of the reason to show the footage this spring is that if the system fails, that's what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
So,
It's my understanding there was some land that wasn't able to be planted this year in that system, is that correct?
I believe that is correct. So,
Any other questions for Chuck?
18 total landowners, just to,
18.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
I would
Okay.
make a motion for both.
oh, wait a minute, we have public comment first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Jumped, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the public comment portion of the hearing. If you have comments on the proposed improvements to Judicial Ditch 17, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this improvement? Please come forward.
Hello, my name is Russ Haven. I've got a little throat problem today, so bear with me. I live in New Ulm, Minnesota, and I couldn't make the July 24th meeting because of, you can hear why. My biggest problem is the cost effective, the amount of money we're going to spend on this 590 acres. Now, to me, that's way out of proportion, and I don't know anything about the tiling and all that, but I did walk to the outlet of this system to see what was happening after we had a 4-inch rain, and it was completely full. It was running at full capacity. It couldn't run any more than that. And from what I could see, and I didn't go down in there, I thought it was a 14-inch tile. I might be wrong, but it looked like a 14-inch tile to me. And I thought, well, my goodness, the thing can't haul any more water than that, and they were saying it was not doing this job. To me, it was doing this job. And I did come up here to their office, the directors of ditches, and I can't remember who I talked to. He lives in New Ulm, but I can't remember who he is. That's you?
Yeah.
Okay. And you did tell me that the outlet tile, correct me, 14 inches or something like that. And in the meantime, you said, but the tile that's coming to this 14-inch tile is bigger than that. So what you have is a big tile coming to this little one at the output. So it's kind of like having a dam. You can't use the full capacity of a big tile, bringing it to the outlet. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. Why would you have a big tile come to the outlet and then put a small tile in to slow it down? That didn't make sense to me. But maybe I'm wrong on the size of the tile, I just don't know.
Right.
And then, excuse me, another thing that was brought up, I've been to a lot of these meetings. You can't make them all, but I tried to make a few of them, most of them actually, and the one I missed was 24th. You did the televising of the tile, and it turned out that your statement was, not you necessarily, but whoever was talking that day, said, we were surprised how good a shape the tile is in. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd too. Here you thought it was half plugged, busted, and it made it sound like it was full of sticks and broken this and that. And we have pictures of it. And granted, there's probably something wrong with a system that's 100 years old. I have to agree with that. I can't tell you whether it's good or not, but it did surprise me that when you said, we are surprised that it's as good as it is. And somebody said, well, how long do you think it'll last? Well, it could go a long time, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Okay? That means all of us in the room that day wouldn't be around anyway, so. So that struck me as a little odd, and I have to use these little glass things here because I have a vision problem too. I think that's about all I really had. The two questions I had was the cost effective of all that kind of money, over $1 million to fix the 590 acres. And then you have tile that's run it at 100% when I went down there to see what it was doing. And that surprised me. And I don't know, you could put in a bigger tile, but if you put in bigger tile and then at the end, at the output, you put in a small tile so it can't do its full capacity, that didn't make sense to me. So that's about all I have to say. Let me look here a little bit here.
Great. Well,
Okay, thank you.
thank you for your comments. Well, can we maybe address the concerns at the end of the public comment portion?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay, thank you for your comments. We will end the public portion of this. Chuck, do you want to address the concerns?
The outlet was rebuilt as a 36-inch tile, and there's a 22 and 20-inch tile coming to this. We did look at an option where we'd run a 36 or a 30-inch tile. Landowners understood that, they have to do something, but we're essentially making it as small as we can and still get some benefit out of it. So, but it is a 36-inch tile that was replaced at the outlet, and there's a smaller tile coming to that. So it isn't acting as a dam. Well, overland flow is. We did build a drop inlet with a berm to capture overland flow, so it didn't directly go into the creek. So.
Okay, thank you.
Chuck?
Craig, do you have anything more?
Guess probably not.
Okay.
Chuck,
Sure. Okay. Bruce, did you want some comments?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so if there are no other public comment, we'll bring it back to the Drainage Authority for action.
Again, I will make a motion to move both of the fixes.
Okay,
Recommend.
recommendations?
for the findings of order.
Okay,
Second.
is there any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, thank you, everyone. Okay, we'll move on to Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Ryan.
Well, not too heavy of an agenda today for our Public Works. A lot of work going on, but it's all boots in the dirt and boots in the mud and excavators and scrapers, so things are moving along. The action items I do have included in the packet for your consideration are approval of the local road improvement program resolution as the first order of business, and the resolution and the subsequent agreement are necessary just to utilize the state LRIP funds that we got towards the construction of the CSAH 17 and Hafner Drive roundabout. So we'll need that before we request those funds that we've expended during construction. So first item is consideration and approval of the resolution that's included in the board packet.
Okay.
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? There's no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
Fantastic. And the second action item is approval of the local road improvement program grant agreement. I don't know why they require a grant agreement and a resolution, but that's how the state works. So I would request approval of that item as well.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved.
All right.
Well, to get onto the intersection, I've been down there quite a few times, and it's looking very good.
It's coming around very well.
They're packing in the gravel now, so it actually looks like a roundabout.
Oh,
So, and they got the mound in the middle. And,
Yep.
And it's looking very good. So it should now it's just putting the stuff on top. They got all the underneath it done with.
Wrapping up the last of the storm sewer connections today. And then completing the sand, and then so there's a 2-foot layer of sand, and then hauling in the aggregate base, and then it'll be curb and gutter, pavement, and really see it start, like you said, start resembling a road. But yep, the subgrade's all been cut and approved and tested.
Looking
So
good.
yeah, you know, it was challenging getting through there with all of the utilities, and then the city utility work that had to be completed, lining the sanitary manholes that were very deep, and also the county tile main that ran through the project, so they had to bypass pump that. So
Kind of jumped you ahead on this.
that's all right.
Okay.
But yes, it's coming along very nicely. We're maybe about a week or so behind schedule just due to the rainfall events that we received. But now in hindsight, when we see that those were those big dumps, they seem to, while they can cause more damage to a project if it's not from an erosion standpoint, they don't seem to soak in and set us back as many days, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the intensity comes over a shorter
We
duration.
missed the rain yesterday.
We did. We dodged that bullet. I was very
yeah.
happy to see that. I was watching it go south, and
Oh, me too.
We also had the Ask Us column, the Ask Us guy in the Free Press. That was good, your response to that.
thank you.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that small roundabout by Hy-Vee works once this is done.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll work. Personally, I don't think the county would have made a roundabout that small. Or if we would have rounded it off so there wasn't a curb
They had mini roundabouts, so
inside,
trucks could
so
drive
trucks
over it.
could drive over, and there would be cement across the whole thing, so a semi-truck making a curve wouldn't be gouging out the mud and dirt and stuff.
Yep.
I'm sure that the city is looking at that to try to fix that
I
problem.
believe they're looking at widening it out. Yep. All right, so construction project updates. We've hit 17 roundabout at Hafner Drive.
oh, if we're not going to go back to that, I got a question or two.
please.
about it. I was going to wait till it was on the agenda. I was waiting in order. So, Mr. Chair, if I may, and the only
No,
question
go
was
ahead.
mostly was what is the estimated time of completion?
So the
Now
target
you're a week
completion date in
behind.
the contract was the end of August.
End of August yet? Okay.
We were hoping to get it completed prior to school being resuming.
Sure.
And it'll be tight, you know, if we keep continuing to have good weather and the contractor continues to work 6 to 8 weeks and things come together, we have a chance of hitting it yet.
Okay.
So it's always so weather dependent.
I understand.
Become highly hesitant to give a solid answer, because as soon as I tell somebody something in the media or the board, and then all of a sudden the contractor changes their plan the next day, and
Yeah.
That
And I know you
doesn't
told us
affect
what it
your drive
was.
any, doesn't?
No. Especially when they got Main Street ripped up too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of construction going on
there it is.
in the
So
city.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I just needed to refresh my memory.
Any other 17 questions? All right. CASA 1, Old Highway 66, the reinforced soil slope number 1, which is the 70-degree faced wall, is progressing fairly well. That is the progress controlling operation for the project, because it does somewhat inhibit egress and ingress through the site. Kind of lying smack dab in the middle of the project, but it's coming up fairly well. Mathwitz expects to have that completed by the end of the month, if not probably a little bit earlier, again, weather dependent. They are working on some grading south of there, so along the new pond and community garden site, Weagle Park, that area, you see the new road alignment taking shape. They'll have to cut the old road out, flop it over. We did close Indian Lake Road from Doc Jones Road to 1 so that we could complete that tie-in. That'll be closed the remainder of the season. So things are taking shape out there. The surcharge through the chute between 90 and 9 is near full. I think there's 4 to 5 feet remaining to go on top of that yet, so we would anticipate having that completed also by the end of August. And if you recall, that'll be returned to a gravel surface road, so that will give us some maintenance headaches in the winter and spring from erosion because of the steep slope. But it is good to have that done, and we're obviously still waiting on the permit for the RSS2 that will determine the progress of the last phase of the project from 9 to 90 for the total reconstruction. There was a meeting on site held with the Army Corps of Engineers and representatives from the tribes. So we should be seeing a determination letter that will have to go to SHPO, and then there's a 30-day approval period there. So we are still hopeful we can at least get a start on putting the surcharge on yet this year. But time is, the clock's not stopping for us. The time's marching on. But that's where we're at with it, so it's taking shape out there, and it's certainly good to see. 14 from 30 to 4, that project's moving very well. The shoulder widening and rough grading is about 95% complete, so they've really got nearly all the dirt or soil in the right place. Now it's just fine-tuning the grades, getting the subgrades cut, and bringing the topsoil back over everything, so they're beginning to do that from the south end of the project, moving to the north. We would anticipate the contractor doing the pavement reclamation, so grinding it up and using it for aggregate base here within the next, if not this week, probably by next week. All of the pipes have been, and tiles have been installed on the project. So we're really happy to see the progress of that job, and we're hopeful that that will wrap up so that we can move our guys on to some of the projects that we've got coming up this fall. Our box culvert bridges, as you recall, we're replacing several large box culverts that actually are listed as bridges on the state inventory. We have completed the 4 of them, 1 on 40, 2 on 144, and 1 on 111. We still have Luray Township 282 just southeast of Eagle Lake. Sounds like the contractor's planning to begin working on that next week. And County State Highway 4 that was damaged in the storms in 2016. That will be completed later this fall because of the material unavailability. We bid that later in the season, and the lead time on box culverts has gotten to be like 3 months.
Wow.
So it used to be pipe, and now it's swapped, and now you can get pipe fairly quickly, but box culverts are taking forever. So manufacturers aren't keeping inventory on hand there. The 2019 bituminous overlays, all of our work has been completed. The Rapidan Dam left abutment repairs, we have a pre-construction meeting set for next week. We would anticipate that to start late August, more likely early September, probably after the holiday weekend. So again, that's why we're looking forward to getting the roundabout and 14 wrapped up so we can move some guys around, and we've got that. And then obviously the Kern Bridge removal and salvage is being advertised right now. So we've got through all of our approvals for the federal aid, and the plans were approved. We're advertising for opening bids on August 28th. That has to go to MnDOT State Aid Central Office for approval because there was a disadvantaged business enterprise goal set for the project. So the contractor has to try to meet that. They also have to review and approve the low bid. And our intention would be to bring it for the county board's approval on September 10th. And that work would continue into the winter with final cleanup and turf establishment the subsequent year, I think, to be completed by June of 2020. So we've still got a full fall ahead of us with a couple of specialized projects, but both projects are going to be happy to get passed. We haven't slowed down on our planning projects. We're still working on County State Highway 10 from the Blue Earth River to Casal 1. The right-of-way acquisition is progressing well, but it is very time-consuming with the limited staff we have for right-of-way acquisition, and just the sheer length of a 5.5 to 6 mile project requires several landowner. Each landowner that Jack or Ryan meet with, they meet with them several times throughout the length of the project. You know, there's an initial meeting to explain the project. An offer may or not be made, and then there's subsequent follow-up meetings, and then obviously getting signatures for the offers and or negotiations, recording deeds. So very time consuming for our staff. That's been one of our critical tasks and one of our choke points as far as our ability to do these projects in a timely manner is acquiring the right of way. The residents out there want to work with Blue Earth County and people that represent us, and generally we get a higher level of responsiveness when they're working with our people.
Yeah.
But it does take time, and we want to treat them the right way. At this point, we had talked about perhaps trying to get it out mid-year and get some of the work done and then complete it next year. With the bid prices we're seeing and where we're at in the season, we don't see any benefit in doing that. So we'll look at putting this out early, either winter or very early spring. So we should be in a very good position for working on this in 2020. 27 from 17 to 2. Plan development is progressing. We should be seeing the 60% plans later this month. Right-of-way documents and permits will be developed in parallel with the plan development. Our challenges on the project are going to be utility relocations. There are a couple of large transmission power poles that have to be relocated as part of the project, as well as just a lot of the utilities that are within the right-of-way. We did meet with the upcoming development, some of the landowners, regarding drainage challenges that we're having, and we're working on finding solutions that the landowners are agreeable to, so we're able to bring them multiple options and work through that process with them to get to the best solution to get some of the drainage across the site to meet our minimum overtopping frequencies. The County Stated Highway 57 Riverfront Drive roundabout interchange at US Highway 14. The design is progressing well on that as well, with our team, including Bolton Mink as the design agent. City of Mankato and MnDOT. We've completed the ADA field walk, phase 1 environmental research, and wetland delineations. So they're moving forward on the progress for the Trunk Highway Review project. The next step is really to achieve preliminary approval for the geometric design support unit from MnDOT central office, so that the selected alternative, what we're looking at right now between is a single lane roundabout on both sides, but the question is whether or not the southern roundabout should be a fully circulatory roundabout compared to a teardrop roundabout where the median is closed from roundabout to roundabout. So that's being debated between MnDOT, their GDSU, the traffic engineers, and the county and the city's opinions. Right now, I think the county and the city, given that's the city's roundabout to an extent, we're letting them lead on the discussions. I think we are supportive of their preference to have a teardrop roundabout where the median is closed between the two, unless there's a real striking benefit to having that full circulatory lane on the south roundabout. It's just more conflict points that may not be necessary.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So that would be a one lane then for the teardrop, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we had that
We
conversation
looked at
earlier.
multi-lane and single lane and the traffic volumes, and it's so peaky at that intersection from a project cost, and it just seems that the single lane under there is the
It's gonna be
because
adequate.
a lot of the traffic does fall off to get on and off the highway.
One way or the other.
Correct.
Yeah, that'd be my only concern. I think I brought that up at the preliminary, is there gonna be enough capacity there?
Yep.
But if most of it falls off as you're either, on the north or south side, I guess that probably would make more
I think
sense.
north of there we're a little over 5,000 ADT,
Yeah.
so
So the through traffic isn't as busy.
correct.
So it'll kind of look like the roundabouts that North Mankato has and City of Nicollet has over at 14. They have kind of a teardrop.
Yep. Very similar to the next one down from the next one west of Luray in North Mankato, and I'm blanking on similar to that interchange.
Yeah, I know which one you mean, yeah.
But I can see what
Commerce.
you mean, that it's,
Commerce, yeah.
at sometimes, I mean, between 4 and 5 at night, pretty busy. But in any case, the roundabout's gonna work better than what they got now. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's,
Absolutely.
at least they, you know, people will be able to get in between and use the blending ability to drive through. Where right now you just can't.
Right.
You sit there for a long time.
Yep. Those left ends are very tough.
Are there wetlands there? I just can't.
There are, if you think like in the ditches, and actually even a few, because of the hydric soils, and a lot of that was put in as fill, they did find hydric soils below. And then like along between the road and Taco John's, there were some wetlands, nothing major, but there are
Okay.
strips of wetland in some of the ditches that were wet ditches that did classify as wetlands.
Okay.
Good.
In our earlier discussions, did even a full roundabout with that 4-lane even fit into the bridge? Didn't we have a?
It would, but it was tight.
Okay.
It made getting the trail through there more challenging, so we will carry the trail through on the west side. And then at the south roundabout, there will actually be a crosswalk as well for pedestrians, and then a sidewalk connection to Good Counsel Drive.
Okay.
So that's, I think, a much needed pedestrian facility that the city of Mankato had identified. The 60 and Pole roundabout, again, Mankato is leading the design on that. I think they're just probably beginning that work. I did see the intent to cost participate agreement, so I'll probably we'll be working through that and reviewing it, probably bringing that next month for your consideration. We are planning to involve a third-party firm to do geometric review when the city provides us with their 30% layout, so that we can look at it, but also have somebody that's done many roundabouts look at it to ensure that we're comfortable with how we believe it'll perform adequately.
Please, in that area, concern yourself with pedestrian crossing.
Yes,
The
Lots of
reason they
walkers.
didn't put a roundabout down on South Riverfront by West is because of pedestrian crossing. We have our largest percentage of special needs people that are crossing in that area,
Yep.
coming from MRCI and walking to and from work. And that concerns me a lot. So we need to really put the emphasis on how are these pedestrians going to cross. If they're going to have to put an extra light somewhere, like they have on Monks, for the school crossing further down. We have to concern ourselves with how pedestrians and how our folks that are special needs are
Yep.
going to
Yep.
make that crossing. Is very, very important. And I hope the city of Mankato is looking. I'm sure they are, but it's I
I
want
will-
to make sure that emphasis is coming from Blue Earth County.
We'll carry that forward. There are benefits and drawbacks of obviously roundabout pedestrian crossings. One being that the pedestrian only has to cross one lane at a time and only make a decision about traffic coming from one direction, and then they get a refuge island, and then they get to make another decision versus having to judge at the four-way stop which cars are coming, which cars are going, and whether or not they have a safe gap to cross. So it'll be an improvement, but I certainly understand, because there are concerns that roundabouts, especially with those of special need or handicap, are more challenging for pedestrians. And
I've heard nothing but issues with people trying to cross our roundabouts at 22 in Madison. And, those, especially people
Multi-lane
with special,
especially.
multi-lane.
yes,
And that will confuse a lot of, heck, it confuses me sometimes.
I was going to say any pedestrian, it pretty much confuses,
So
yeah.
we have to,
Certainly more challenging.
really
Yeah.
Yep.
put our emphasis on how to make sure that the
Yep.
pedestrians are going to be able to safely cross,
yep.
from
And
one
in
side
this
to
one,
the
the benefit will be that we'll have one lane roundabout. This shouldn't be multi-lane.
Yeah.
So I certainly understand, yes, the multi-lanes are more concerning for the pedestrians by far.
That would be an improvement over, having tree lane.
But, yep, message received, and we'll definitely carry that forward through our project management team
Thank you very
design
much.
review. You're welcome.
What, and I know you can't, are we looking at a couple of years? Are we looking at a year?
That is scheduled for next year.
Okay, I couldn't remember when it was scheduled.
I believe they received federal funding, but it's in 22 or 3. The intent is to advance fund that project to keep it in 2020 construction year, the last conversation I had with Jeff.
But that is a county-city interchange, so I would imagine you should have a fair amount to say on that.
Absolutely. It's the same as any other shared intersection. We have as much say as they do. It's just the fact they'll be leading the project on this one, because they receive the federal funding, so we're trying to take an approach where we go every other in those types of circumstances to spread the workload. Just a couple of miscellaneous items for your information. The CASAS 17 speed study update from 2017 that we requested. I did receive preliminary numbers back from MnDOT finally. It's pending the Commissioner of Transportation's review and approval, but they anticipate and are recommending a no change from the currently posted 45-mile-an-hour speed. So,
Surprise.
so the data is here. I can pass it around if you'd like to look at it. I did put it in the board packet because they didn't want it publicized yet until the commissioner was able to review it. So, yeah.
And you know, once they say it, that's going to be law. You know,
Correct.
that's the whole thing.
Yep.
It was,
So,
Careful for what you
Careful.
ask sometimes.
you're exactly correct. And with respect to the speed studies, you know, we did hire Bolton and Mink to utilize streetlight data, look at some of our other county stated highways around the Mapo. We are hoping to see that back in the future, near future here, and we can certainly bring that forward for a work session just to talk about what we're seeing of what's posted versus what may be recommended versus in what direction we may want to take in the future, whether we request more studies.
Do you have a thought?
I got a comment, and I get a little frustrated because we don't have it posted out on Adams where it comes into the rural area. And from what I understand, we kind of let the traffic drive the speed they want, that we do the study off of that. And to me, I'm not an engineer, but to me that's kind of backwards. You want people to drive slow out there, post it right away, so they're driving slow instead of letting them drive 55 miles an hour, and then come back later and do the speed study of what the average speed of people driving are, and then all of a sudden expect to change it to something lower. You know, we got no postings out there as far as I know. I don't drive it a lot.
Because it's 50, you're talking 12 or and or
well,
17?
I'm talking the Adams where it goes into the rural area, because it's
Oh, the
not
Adams
all,
Street.
the Adams Street
Okay,
extension.
Adams
It's not
Street.
all the way to, because it's still some of that's county or county, right? Because that's not all annexed, is it, or is it all annexed?
None of Adams is.
Adams
none
out
of
to
Adams
12.
is county road.
No, I understand that, but is any of it is it all annexed out to 12? For some reason, I was under the
I would assume when they
understanding
built
some of it
should
wasn't.
be all annexed into city limits.
yeah, I would imagine the city built that.
Yeah,
So it
but
should be a
I just
city
thought there was
street.
some rural area left out there that was
Right,
posted.
some developable
But it's not
areas.
posted as far as I know, is my
And you're
point.
right, they
Right,
should.
that was brought up in an
Since
ask
it's
us,
a so-called city street, they should actually post it
30
30 miles an hour.
30 or 35,
You
depending
know, so
on.
now people are driving 40, and I'm one of them, because it's not posted. I get out in that area, I start driving 45, 50 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, we want to post it at 30. If you want to post it at 30, they're going to do the study, they're going to see that everybody's driving 45, so let's post it at 45 when we, if we agree, wanted it at a different speed. So it's just a comment
The
and a
piece of 12
frustration that I
we
have.
don't have posted is because that's rural, and by the state statute, that is a 55 mile an hour speed limit.
And 12,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. So even 12 running south of 17 is all 55. Again, that's not posted very well either, if I remember
Correct,
right.
it's not posted.
So that's
either.
55 all the way to the roundabout.
Until it becomes part of city limits and the surrounding conditions change where you have more buildings go up at a closer spacing, if you read the state statute,
Then you
that's
post
what
it.
dictates the speed limits
Okay.
along with the observed speed. So there are conditions that you can put on there, but then we're still handcuffed as a county to that 30 or 55.
Right.
But on a city road like Adams, I believe they have an option to use a 35 also.
And 35 would be appropriate
Yeah.
for that road. 45, 55 is too fast. I have a hard time driving south on 12 at 55. I'm driving that at
Because of
55.
the inner-
It just doesn't seem
Because
right.
in the design speed is less than
Yeah,
55.
it's just not a very big area, and it's hard to.
And you've got a couple of, intersections
Yeah,
and roundabouts
yeah.
and things like that that slow people down naturally,
So-
like you said.
Just a observation that I'm having.
All right.
It's a good one.
An update on our bridge funding. For the bridge replacement and inventory management, we used to use what was called the sufficiency rating that was coupled with the National Bridge Inspection Standards, and they are categories on a scale of 1 to 9. So anything below 3 was also a trigger for a bridge to become eligible for funding. So MnDOT State Aid and the county engineers have been working on a new formula and a new system to categorize bridge funding and eligibility and the condition. The sufficiency rating was a little bit of a tricky number and didn't always accurately reflect the real condition of the bridge because it was sometimes the weightings were skewed incorrectly. But that was how federal aid and state aid had tied replacement of bridge eligibility for replacement. That's being replaced with the local planning index number, and now required that the local planning index number under 60 is the trigger for a bridge to be eligible in conjunction with the NBI ratings of 3 or less. So what it does is it helps us prioritize our local bridge replacement, repairs, and rehabilitation. It's weighted a little bit more to more accurately reflect the actual condition of the bridge and help us as a tool. So it should be a nice transition. It's going to be a 5-year change from the sufficiency rating to the LPI number, but I just wanted to bring that up because I know Vance and Colleen, for sure, when we go and talk to our state legislature and we hand them the list of bridges, and we used to work off the sufficiency rating, that'll be transitioning to this LPI number. So we'll see where 80 used to be the trigger is now 60 is the trigger for it being eligible for funding. So a little change, but it'll be a good tool for us, and I think it's a move in the right direction.
And on that, when they replace the Blatnick Bridge, are there going to be any bridges done in during that 2-year period? They're going to take all the money.
Yep, absolutely. Those big bridge projects take all the money. Well, you know, the legislature did make it so that anything over $7 million had to have earmark bonding. We will be continuing to get the $13 million a year
Okay.
from the sales tax.
Across the state of Minnesota.
Correct, but that's across the entire state. So in a biennium, we get $27 million. Well, that
How many
doesn't go very
million
far.
does it cost to build a bridge? I mean,
Yeah, that's my
a
question.
decent sized bridge, you're probably talking 500,000 to $1 million. So it won't buy many bridges. No, absolutely. Again, where our sales tax is going to be a tremendous tool for us to keep moving some bridges forward. That's why we've gotten to do all these box culverts and keep those moving forward.
And gentlemen, that was a really good vote to take. Just thought I'd say that.
Thank you.
And last but not least, the Duck Lake Fishing Pier. I know Kip and I have talked about this. But the Duck Lake Preservation Association has been very active, very vocal in supporting a fishing pier at Duck Lake Park. They've raised a significant amount of money, nearly enough to pay for the entire pier. And in parallel with that, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources had that on their list of piers, knowing that there was a financial match. So the state legislature authorized funds to pay for the fishing pier. So we're in the process of developing a cooperative agreement with the DNR to install an 84-foot fishing pier. Mincor was the manufacturer that is on the state contract, but as you may know, Mincor is no longer operational at this time. They did have enough parts in their inventory left so that the DNR is going to order enough to build the 84-foot fishing pier.
wow.
So we'll get the agreement in place, they'll get the pier ordered, and we'll work with the Preservation Association with a separate cooperative agreement between the county and the association, so that they'll be paying for a significant share of the work that has to be done by the county, required by the DNR, and then obviously we and the DNR will jointly maintain the pier in the future. So,
84 feet. Wow.
That's huge.
I was out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I was out at the lake the other day, and the weight restrictions were on. There were signs
Yes.
everywhere.
yep.
And all of a sudden, about, I'd say 7 o'clock, this guy gets out in his jet ski, and he's just buzzing the lake, and he's going round and round and round. Well, it turns out that they had just
4 o'clock, they went off. Yep.
They just dropped it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and everybody's going, what is going on? There's weight restrictions.
Yep, they dropped it, I believe, Thursday, right? Were you out there Thursday?
Yeah, I think it was Thursday.
Yeah, because we were watching too, so we could go out and
Yeah.
on the lakes and
It's probably Ryan.
That might have been right, yeah.
But that pier is just a great show what public-private partnerships can do.
Absolutely,
I mean,
and-
that's because you know, the organization had the money, the state jumped in. Otherwise, it wouldn't. It just wouldn't have happened. So that's really a great deal on that. And they have a lot to be proud of. The organization has a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, it puts them in a good position to maybe do some further enhancements around the lake with some of the funds that they've raised, so. Absolutely.
Very good.
Well, that's all I
That's a
have.
very active organization,
Yes.
the Duck Lake Association is. They invite me to the picnic every year, and they always have a great turnout, and people are very supportive of the things going on. And they appreciate the support we give them for the weed control. You know, we have a park on that lake, and it's looking much better, so.
That's one, before you go, I want to comment and thank you and your staff for the no parking signs out at Newburgh Lake. I've been by there several times and they're absolutely working, so thank you.
Good, yep, we've had some calls on that, and I think it'll settle down once the sheriff's office is out there doing some routine enforcement.
Good. Wonderful, thank you so much.
Fantastic, have a great day.
You too,
Thank you,
Ryan,
Ryan.
thanks.
Does anybody need a break, or do you want to continue on?
I'm okay.
Okay. Let's just-
Whatever.
Let's just continue on then if nobody needs a break. Okay, Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Again, the report speaks for itself. A couple of things that we've recently been looking into, and I know I've mentioned this in the last few years a couple of different times, but our appeals. Many times the Attorney General's office would take appeals for us, and we actually had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with the Attorney General when he was in the area. But this is an area that seems to be a big uptick in the last few months for us, and these appeals can be very time consuming and whatnot, but I just wanted to put that on your radar. Not asking for anything at this point in time, but there seems to be that increase. And over the years, like I say, the larger we get, the less appeals that the Attorney General's office takes for us, and I want to say they've taken one in the last 3 years. So we have, I've reached out a couple of different times in the last year plus to the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. That's one of the services. If they have the resources, they will assist in that area as well. Scott Hersey works there part-time. He was worked for Dakota County for years and has done this many times. But that's just something I wanted to put on your radar. I'll be running numbers next week in some of these areas to try to figure out what we have open and outstanding. And then another area that kind of fits hand in hand with what we've been doing with the Child and Family Advocacy Center is just in general of children's mental health. And so I've had some discussions with the school districts, internal partners, community partners and whatnot, and just wanted to start that conversation as well to see what resources are out there, because part of this ties in with our donation that we received from the Andreas Foundation at the Child and Family Advocacy Center to provide some more of those services in those areas. And what we've done to this point, the way that I described it, is simply this: we've worked on our processes and whatnot to get the kids in the front door to do the forensic interviews and whatnot. But then where we're starting to turn our focus to now is the connection of the services within the community, and what's available and what's out there. I know that there's some pretty substantial caseloads internally with the county in these areas and whatnot, but I just wanted to let you know that we're having some of those conversations. And if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, I'm more than happy to address them now. And as always, my door is always open and my phone's always on. So,
What are most of the appeals about? It varies?
It varies. It varies. We are, and one thing I do want to say is we're fortunate in the respect that we're not big enough, the Attorney General's office, with the psychopathic personalities. They will still handle those appeals for us. I mean, those are very time consuming, very costly, but they will still do those. But we've had one of them that came in yesterday. It's on a crim sex case, and we've had a couple of crim sex cases that we've been that have been appealed, and now there's one that's petitioning for review with the Minnesota Supreme Court. There's some sentencing issues, and we would always handle those issues, but there's just been some a couple of pretrial issues that we felt compelled. We normally try not to appeal too many of those because win, lose, or draw, we have to pay for the other side's cost. So that's something that we rarely reach out and do, but there's been a couple of cases that we felt compelled that we've had to do that. But many of these are just the convictions from the jury trials, and you know, the State Public Defender's Office has just that. They have an appellate division, and they do it statewide for everybody, and everybody has the right to appeal whether they want to or not, or whether the State Public Defender's Office wants to accept it or not. They have that right. So it's just more of the convictions coming out and the sentences and the you know, we just had a sentencing just within the recent past on somebody that Mr. Chair and I worked on for numerous years, and he was just sentenced to 66 years in prison. So I know that we're going to get an appeal on that. So it's we get some of these, what they refer to as the Blakely issues, and it's a case resulting from and that's what one we just had a decision come out that was upheld yesterday on the length of the sentence because of the departures and whatnot. So we always try to stay within the guidelines, but if there's aggravating factors, we're going to go after those aggravating factors, and we're going to try to make sure that people are sentenced appropriately.
So help me understand, if this is either a judge's ruling or a jury trial, and they are state employees, as I understand it.
Yes, they are.
As is the public defender.
Correct.
I don't understand why the state's not responsible. Maybe that's a redundant question, but.
Well, we could get into
responsibility.
If there's constitutional issues, you know, then that's ultimately where but if you get into the statutory edict, so to speak, of the responsibility of the Attorney General versus county attorneys, because, you know, local governments, we are nothing more than just a branch of the state in some way, shape, or form. So you're here as a representative of the state, just like I am. So in some of these areas, you know, it's difficult, but they will take it if they have the capacity, but they just haven't had the capacity. And that's one discussion that we did have with Attorney General Ellison when he was here.
Yep.
Is, you know, especially you get into some of the smaller counties, Nicollet County, Watonwan County, Freeborn County, you know, we have at least some more resources than they do in some of these areas, and it's just that's something that we have to do, and we just have to put off other things. It's not that we won't get to it, we just won't get to it until we have time. But the appeals, we have those timelines and whatnot, and that's been a growing concern in a growing area for more than 5 years. So we did not address these appeals adequately when I took over, and I received phone calls from various Court of Appeals judges saying, you will start doing this. So
I just think it's an issue.
Oh, it is an issue, and it's a constant resource issue, and it's not unique to us.
But it is actually an issue that the state should be dealing with.
That would be fine with me.
Yep, just thought I'd say that.
So, any other questions for Pat?
Good report.
Thank you, Pat.
Good report, Pat.
Okay, move on to administrative services.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for July 23rd.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Next are the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
I'll move the bills.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I've got some.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Let's see, we got an Egan Company, building acquisition construction for $160,000.
They are our data wiring contractors, part of the building project.
Okay. This is obviously a ditch issue, but Gustafson Drainage, $203,000.
I sat down with Bob yesterday and went through all of these, and I asked that question too.
Yeah. Question is, which ditch is it?
It's
That's not hard.
28, isn't it?
County Ditch 48 and JD 9, so
Yeah,
it's two
I knew it was
ditches.
one of mine.
All right. And we got Kraus Anderson Construction for $103,000.
They are construction manager.
That's
on the
for
building.
Yeah, Kraus Anderson, sure. I think that was it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bills are approved.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 8 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just to have informational items for the board today. We have filled a custody officer position, as well as filling the MTRAC coordinator position. This is a part-time position. And then we had an increase in hours for a library clerk from a non-call role into a part-time library clerk role. So we've initiated recruitment to backfill that on-call library clerk position. And then we've initiated recruitment to fill the human resources technician position. And lastly, we received a resignation of a 911 dispatcher, and so we've initiated recruitment to fill that position.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Okay. No questions, we'll move on to the Commissioners' reports on committees. Anybody want to start?
I'd be happy to start mine very short because most of my meetings were canceled.
Okay, go
Mine
ahead.
short too.
Other than a couple parades and some social events that I attended throughout the local communities, as I mentioned, I had several meetings, Regional Radio Board, Emergency Communication Board, no business with the legislature out of session, so those are all canceled. And MRCI, I was unable to attend yesterday, but I did call in and everything's moving along fairly well there, and we are doing some updates on our buildings, and I'll have a better report for you next month.
Perfect, thank you. Colleen?
Mine short too. On the 30th, I went to Senator Tina Smith's housing meeting.
Good.
It was well attended, and Andrew from Blue Earth County, who does our homeless, really did a nice job speaking about the issues. Partners for Affordable were there. I mean, it was lots of good comments, lots of good information. Bree, who's out of her Rochester office, and a gentleman from DC were there for the senator. Lots of good comments, lots of concerns. We not only talked about the city of Mankato and the county and the partners that everybody has, but also USDA can also fund housing, and so the importance of putting money into that. You know, it's always kind of a mix when you get a group like that together where they talk about state issues and federal issues, and, you know, trying to define with some people that that's a state issue, that's a federal issue, is sometimes kind of confusing. But it was great. On the 31st, I went to the solar and wind energy meeting in St. Peter. And so I had questions about setbacks and that type of thing.
Good.
I think it's really important that we look at what other counties in the state are doing and see what makes sense and what doesn't. I also think having certs involved in that is really important, because I think there's great opportunities there. Also talked about electric vehicles, and you know, the changes we'll see, they're not going to happen overnight, but you know, and when you look at Prospenco or Excel, you know, when you do energy efficiency, it sometimes impacts their bottom line. Electric vehicles will change that. So great opportunities there. The other thing is, I've been appointed to the Finance, Intergovernmental and Elections Committee, so I can sit on the subcommittee for elections that NACO's got with NACO and the Federal Elections Committee to try and do safe and secure elections.
Congratulations.
I think it's going to be
Yes,
really
excellent.
interesting, and I think
That's
it's really important. So that's my report.
Great, thank you. Vance?
Well, I got a short one compared to last
Okay.
meeting.
That still could be, excuse me.
Now, play nice.
Well, after our last meeting, I had a Rural Action Caucus call-in. And then on July 25th, I spoke with a summer class. Jeremy Berger has a summer class at Lincoln Community Center. And that's kind of a yearly thing I do. I go down, talk to them, talk about being a county commissioner, talking about what our, what we do, and like so many cases, nobody knows what county commissioners do, and nobody knows what your county government does, and sometimes it's rather eye-opening to them as to how much county government really does affect their lives from their birth to their death. Then on the 26th, I stopped at the fair, spoke with Commissioner Purvis, and walked around, saw the animals and the different thing. The fair looked pretty good after all the problems they had with flooding and stuff this year. They did a pretty good job, it looks like, and they had some pretty good weather to run through. Of course, they had rain.
Had a couple days of rain,
Yeah.
but they had a couple good days too. So.
Yep. On August 1st, I had a South Central Towards Zero Death meeting, and then a Blue Earth County Library Board meeting the same day. Kind of interesting. I'm always amazed at the numbers of items checked out. Between June and July, our library here in Mankato checked out 73,000 books.
Isn't that
Wow.
something?
Isn't that wonderful?
It's just amazing, amazing. And that's an up from last year, which was only 60. So, I mean, you think 60,000 is a lot of books. Well,
Yeah.
You put,
Oh.
and so the library system's doing well. Our library director's doing well. We've got a lot of good things going on over there.
Yeah.
And then yesterday I drove up to St. Cloud for the Magic Board. Interesting, they talked about the feds lowering their rate. They're expecting with what's going on with the economy and stuff that the feds probably will lower it even more. Of course, they're just idea people, and they give you professional opinions, and whether the Fed does it or not, that's up to the Fed. But,
You won't
but
until
it's expected. The lowering of the rate was expected for 6 months, and it happened. So I think that's just the Fed trying to stabilize. I did ask them if that would lower our bond rate again.
Yeah.
And they said, of course, that has to do with a lot of different things, but they did say that there's a possibility our bond rates again will lower down, and from having as low as it's been anyway, that can be good for the county. But the possibility of a recession in 2020 and 2021 is looming on, very high. So, all right, that's it.
Okay.
That's all I did.
Thank you, Vance. Mark?
Okay, start with the Friday the 26th. I did go to the Blue Earth County Fair too. I was a little bit later though. I didn't catch either the county or attorney or esteemed county commissioner. They probably
I was
they weren't there
earlier
when I
in the
was-
day.
I had volunteered help with my spouse, I guess, whatever, at the Heritage Building with the Historical Society.
You
And
do bingo?
no, don't do that anymore.
Oh.
It didn't come before. You didn't realize it didn't come before our board.
I know, and I just,
They don't do that now. So that was interesting, and there's quite a few people. Quite a few went through the Historical Society, the building there, the Heritage Building.
that's pretty interesting.
Yep. And then Wednesday, the 31st, I went to the MPCA, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, had the Minnesota River study. Scott Salisbury with our environmental service was there. With the paper, there were a lot of other people there that when they wrote, they had the article on it, but I was there after 6, and so they weren't there. But anyway, it was interesting discussion about that, and everybody has a place in it. And the gentleman from the PCA wasn't. They were pretty good about comprehensively covering it and not singling out one. Obviously, agriculture being a dominant factor is a big part of it, but it's a big part of the solution as well as some of the problems. So it isn't like there isn't just one group that's the villain or anything like that. Everybody's involved, cities and the whole work. So it was interesting in what they came up with, and well, over long term we'll have to keep working on. Then did have Maple on Thursday night, our policy board meeting, and of course Ryan is always there, and he's the head of the TAC, the Technical Advisory Group this year. We did approve, after a few years looking at it, the 169 corridor study from the interchange there with 169 and 14 all the way down to Lahalia there, and actually County 33 and all that. We're going to look at flow of traffic, and of course MnDOT's heavily involved, and so we'll see how that all shakes out, but we finally approved that. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you. Mine's relatively short too. On the 24th, I had the County Ditch 17 landowners meeting that we considered this morning. Also had the transit meeting, the True Transit meeting in St. Peter. Some changes coming there. They're going to change their format from a route system to a call for ride. I think that will be a good addition to the system, although of course it comes with a higher price tag, so that's a concern for everyone. So I was at the fair on the 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th. Got to speak with a lot of my constituents down there, and I always enjoy that. And then yesterday I was at Crystal Seasons. I gave my monthly report there, and that's my report.
Mr. Chair, just a comment, because Mark, at the MPCA thing, they talked a lot about storage for ditches and that kind of thing. So after the conversation this morning, I think it might be another piece of this. Yeah.
The big thing was that everybody's, I think it's going to be pure clean water. Well, it never was. So you just get the stage up above that where it's a little cloudy and stuff, but you get rid of all the bad stuff. It's a work in progress. It's going to be, because if you remember, and he even started the talk with Governor Carlson back in the 90s. And was going to clean it up.
It well.
Yeah. Clean it up within a decade, and here we are. Because it's a big thing. You're just not going to get solved that fast.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, anything else?
When you talk about pure clean water, I'm going to be taking the canoe trip or kayak trip tomorrow up the Blue Earth River from Amboy and
You're going to do that.
I'm going to do that.
Unfortunately, give my regrets. Unfortunately, I had other plans, so I won't be able to.
It looked like a lot of.
Same
And also
here.
is going to get a lot of information as to river health and stuff like that. So that and there'll be ability of me to squeeze into my life vest and try my shot at kayaking or canoeing again. So.
I told him that I couldn't because I'm going to Women with Hearts tomorrow.
Well, when you come to the widest spot in the river between Amboy and Vernon Center, that's my farm.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I'll be good to know.
Okay. If there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.